plus $13,611. In amendment number 99, it cuts, it freezes the accounting associate 3 support technician position, $90,609. There is a $25,000 reduction to salaries and benefits that's built into that $167,427 number. So the change is the $90,609 position and $25,000 of benefits for revised projections.
I ask a question on that? This has some implications for Munis, right? Or am I mistaken?
There are 2 positions. There's a vacant accounting associate 3 position, which is the support technician. If you all approve it, there will be a manager position approved, which will leave an analyst position open. We hope to put a Munis expert into the MIT analyst position. This is a position that was vacated in the last 3 weeks. It is a position that it works the help desk, provides tech support, and is important to our Microsoft Office upgrade and providing support when we go out and upgrade our Microsoft for the first time in 15 years. And if you'd like to, Sean Wampler is here if you'd like to ask the department about the impact.
Yes, if we could come forward, please. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sean Wampler. I'm the GIS coordinator for the city. Barb is on vacation, so I'm here as a poor replacement, but I will do my best.
So can you tell us what the impact is on your department?
For the account associate 3, this is one of our tier 1 positions for support. So this is someone who answers the phone and frees up our engineers to do the work out in the field. If we lose this position, our help desk we won't be able to answer the phone all day. We'll have to send calls to voicemail. I'm sorry?
What you said?
I said we'll have to send stuff to voicemail when
Okay.
people call. So it'll impact that. It'll also impact that none of us have experience with Adobe fillable forms, which there are like 200, I believe, on the website. And this person is also our webmaster backup. So if Ina is out, we do have another person, but it's a pretty thin thing if one of them are out. And we'll also be, do I address the 112?
Well, they haven't seen that part, but if it affects the position, yes. There's an amendment coming up to cut capital outlay by $112,000 and use 6-year-old computers for a 7th year.
Right.
So if this is if that affects this position, then yes, you should.
It'll affect it because we'll be dealing with older equipment, so we expect the service calls to increase. It'll also cause myself and the webmaster to be answering and supporting more support calls instead of moving our projects forward.
Alderman Henson is next.
I would just ask everyone to consider 2 things here. One, there is still a position that is going to be funded and vacant where they could advertise for someone to fulfill these variety of skills. Someone who has experience with PDF forms, someone who can be a webmaster backup. Once you elevate the acting manager to the manager position, there is an analyst position that is still funded to be filled. So there will still be an ample opportunity to have those functions filled. I think the second thing I would ask everyone to consider is that this is largely a clerical position, and the salary for this is currently set at $52,000. The duties that are outlined there are answering the phone for the help desk and performing some troubleshooting, some sort of over the phone tech support assistance, if you will. I don't know that we have classified this to be commensurate with the duties that we are asking this person to do. I think it may be more appropriate for a person that is an analyst to be performing these sort of tech support duties as opposed to a person who is the clerical person that answers the phone, so that we may have the opportunity to reclassify this and make a pay that's commensurate with the duties that are there, and have the analyst absorb some of those more tech support functions. So I would just ask everyone to consider those two things. It doesn't leave the department without the opportunity to get someone in, and then at the same time, I don't know that this position as it is currently used is the highest and best use of this. When we were looking at it, it's a $90,000 line item when we consider the salary and benefits. I don't know that it's the highest and best use of that for the city.
I did forget to mention that this person was also our advanced Microsoft Office technical support. So someone who had a lot of technical expertise in large documents, Excel, and things of that nature.
And I would like to add that the MIT analyst position, we hope to fill with someone with Munis expertise. That is going to be a full-time job in and of itself. You heard Captain Stokes. Captain Stokes. Look at that, I demoted him just like that. I'm sorry. You heard Chief Stokes talk about what a nightmare it is to do payroll in Munis. You all asked HR, please give us the full-time equivalent, and it was a nightmare to get that information out of Munis. You have a budget in Excel because it is a nightmare to get budget out of Munis.
While
Okay.
I still have the floor, may I just briefly frame this conversation? We are in a time where we are raising taxes. For taxpayers, particularly those on a fixed income, that means that they are going to have to make adjustments. For people in my ward who are retirees, there will be no more money coming in. It means that they will have to make adjustments. The taxpayers cannot be the only ones asked to make adjustments. We as a city will have to make adjustments as well. That's just the reality of it. We did give the department heads the opportunity to tell us about the positions. We also solicited from them, what would you do with a 5% cut, 4% cut, 3%, 2%, 1%. So this was, in endeavoring to make cuts, was not something we entered into lightly or haphazardly. We really did take a very surgical approach to looking at each department. We know through speaking with our constituents that it is not acceptable to them that we just continue on with our spending as usual, but as a city we have to find some way to cut corners. It would have been wonderful if the departments would have come in and said, this is what we can live without and these are the sacrifices we can make, but that's just not the feedback we got. The feedback we got was every single thing on the table is every single thing that we need, and that just cannot be. So it forced us into a position where we had to determine what is it that the city can do without, where are the places that we can make cuts. So we had to make those determinations, and we did to the very best of our ability with the information that we solicited. But I just ask everyone as we enter this conversation to approach it from a perspective that things are just going to have to change. It cannot be that the taxpayers have to absorb the changes, but that the city just continues to have the same business as usual. So if I just may add that frame to our discussion.
And I'm sorry that Barb isn't here, but in the interactions that I had with her, I believe we did try to cut to compensate.
Yes, you're correct. Barb and Tricia Hopkins both have Munis consulting money in their budgets, $25,000 in MIT and $10,000 in HR, which if we can get this Munis expert as an employee, we can cut that $35,000 of consulting fees in those two budgets, as well as $25,000 in health insurance. So that, you're correct, that was
And the
$60,000. And then Tricia also was willing to cut her $40,000 contractual position if it meant that we could get this Munis expertise and help desk position.
And Teresa, some of those things are incorporated into these amendments, is that correct?
I believe what you've done is you've taken those things that they said could be cut and cut them, and then cut the $90,000 position in addition to it.
The
Alderwoman.
support function position.
Yes.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Finlayson?
Well, it's unfortunate that we have to characterize this as we have. None of us are taking this lightly. The Finance Committee spent a couple of months and I think 23 meetings talking to department heads individually and in groups to try to figure out how we could make this work. No one wants a tax cut or a tax increase, absolutely. And I thought we had done a pretty good job of kind of getting us down to where we thought it was livable. At least that was the discussion we had in our meetings. But clearly that's not enough. Yes, everybody has to pay taxes and everybody wants services. And we are talking about raising taxes and cutting services. We are going to pretend that we're not, but every one of our employees has a full-time job already. And we're totally discrediting what they do, not to mention the department heads, because I'll get to that. But we are acting like MIT has not, for the last 3 or 4 years, worked with 1 or 2 people down. And they didn't complain, they did it, and they worked the long hours because they were committed to our city. Our city is a service, just like any other city. We're a service organization. It is about the quality of the service that we provide. And we have to pay for it. This can has been kicked down the road time and time again, and you're talking about doing it again. Okay? You don't want to raise taxes too much now because we're going to come back next year and do it again. Well, be honest about it right now. We cannot live without some of these positions that you want to cut. Yeah, some of them can go, but somebody else, rest assured, is going to pick up that job. You know, we can't hire policemen. Some of these positions will cause people to leave our employ because they don't feel anyone cares about them, because their workload is already full and we're asking them to do more. How long have you guys in MIT been down staff?
I believe we lost our MIT manager 4 years ago,
4 years ago.
and Barb has been fulfilling both roles.
And she has been filling both roles.
Yes.
I don't know whether any of you have had to call MIT to get Paul or Brian or Patrick to come out. They come out as soon as they can get out to us. You know, one of the complaints that the community has about the city is that we are not a good service provider. You know, they call and they can't get anybody. Our help desk is not going to exist, and while we can pretend that that's not important, it is. People who want help, need help, don't want to get a voicemail on the phone or don't want to get an electronic voice. They need to talk to somebody. You know, these cuts are going to hurt our city. They're going to hurt public safety in the worst way, and we'll get to all of those, okay? MIT is the backbone for all of the departments. You would think that you would want to take care of them first and foremost. You know, the department heads are professionals that were hired with a great deal of effort in selecting them because we wanted the best and brightest in our city. And now we're going to sit up here and tell them what they can do without. And yes, they came before us and we had an honest discussion, and we didn't fulfill all of their wishes and support all of their enhancements. And then there was the work session when you called them on the spot. And several of them, if not all of them, would have given a different response had they been given notice that they were going to be pulled up to answer the questions about those positions. Let's treat them like the professionals we hired them to be. Just like we hired a city manager, well, obviously you're not concerned about that, but we've hired a city manager with a skill set. And we should give the same department heads, or all of our department heads, the due respect.
Mayor.
Alderman Savage, he was next up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just want to provide back up a little bit, provide a little bit of context in terms of where this whole list came from. So after probably the first work session we had on the budget, a number of us got talking about how we would like to see proposed reductions from the departments, because we didn't really hear too much of that in the Finance Committee meetings. And so Teresa was incredibly accommodating and helped us get that list from the departments. So it was, again, 1 through 5% reductions. And so we took that. We took what we could, but we also realized that we couldn't, and in many cases didn't want to do any kind of layoffs or furloughs. So we had to take what we could from that list. And we also went and at the second meeting that we had, work session we had on the budget, we took Alderwoman Henson took the vacant position list, and we went through that and tried to incorporate that in these cuts, right? So we tried to take all of that together, everything we heard from the Finance Committee, because I think, philosophically, I agree with my colleague from Ward 6, and I think we can't place the entire burden of this tax increase on the shoulders of the taxpayers. They are going to be sacrificing with this increase. So I think we do have to ask staff to make similar sacrifices. And I'm saying that as a former staff person. I know it's painful, but as an alderman, we have a lot more to balance besides just staff needs. So I'm not really interested in hearing again from all of the directors, because I feel like we heard from the directors of the departments in Finance Committee meetings, the 22 meetings now, 80 hours of work that you all put into it. We heard from them at the work sessions on the budget that we had. We heard from them in the documents they submitted through Teresa. So I don't see why we need to hear all this again. Are we going to invite the public back to hear their thoughts again? I just don't think it's fair overall to be going through this whole process again. And that's right. I'd really just rather vote on these.
Alderwoman Henson.
This, if I just may say, Alderwoman Finlayson, this work only stands on top of the Finance Committee's work. It is not possible without some of the policy decisions that you all made and the work that you all did to take the tax rate down to the increase to 10.5 cents. This work is only possible with that as a launching point, and then that on top of that. It is not the heavy lift that you all did. We are not duplicating the effort. The information that was before this small work group was not the information before the Finance Committee. The recommendations for cuts was not before the Finance Committee. The vacancy list and the testimony from the department heads was not before the Finance Committee. It is an entirely different set of cuts that are being looked at and that were considered by this small work group. So I don't want it to be, it sounds like in what you have to say, that it is somehow an affront to the very hard work of the Finance Committee, and that is not what it is intended to be. It is intended to only work in connection with that and stand on top of that work. You mentioned, I don't want to belabor this one position, but you mentioned that for 4 years, Barb was doing the work of both the analyst and the director. This proposed amendment elevates her to the manager position, and then also fills the analyst position. It solves the issue of her having done both jobs for 4 years. So it does fall in line with making sure that we are taking care of our employees in the MIT department in that way, and it gives them the opportunity to bring someone in who has the expertise to fill these things that they are making sure they need to plug the holes. We are not leaving our city without the ability to care for its information technology needs, and I'm not sure why you're characterizing it that way.
May I, Mr. Mayor?
Alderwoman Finlayson.
I'm characterizing it that way because that's the way it is. We've heard from the department. We've heard from Barbara. And I think part of the concern is we have a process, or at least we had a process. And that process was through the Finance Committee and then to the full council. And then there was another group who decided to get together and make some different decisions. And therefore, the recommendations that you brought here tonight. We all got an email on Saturday saying we have 6 votes, so we've made the decisions.
Is that
That's
what your email said?
That's what we got, okay? So
Not what it said.
but the point is, the process that the city has traditionally followed, and we all have a lot of new people on the council, you're doing your own thing, and that's fine. But don't expect us to deviate or expect to deviate from the process that the city has had in place. The department heads did come to the council finance committee, and we questioned them at length, okay? You guys felt the need to redo what the Finance Committee did. The Finance Committee had a responsibility to talk to everybody and make a budget recommendation to the full council. That is what we did. You all chose a different path. So yeah, we're going to hear from all the departments that are being impacted, because we need to hear again and have them, give them a real opportunity to justify or to help you understand why eliminating one position is not hurting the entire department. Because you don't understand how this has come about as it is. Our departments have been depleted of employees, not completely, but our employees have been working at a disadvantage for a number of years. And at some point, and I think we're already there, service is going to suffer. We cannot hire police. No one is answering the phone. We outsource. I got a call from a gentleman in my ward who said, you outsource refuse, and it took me 7 calls to get somebody to come and pick up a mattress who doesn't even belong to me. You know, we make these decisions without looking at the long-term implications. We don't know what some of these are. These folks out here do know, because this is the day-to-day work that they do. They've lived the budget process many, many times over, and they have sacrificed personally and with their employees to make things continue to work in our city. And so now to discount what they're saying as not being accurate or true or fair, no. Now you can do whatever you want. You're going to do it anyway. Okay? So I know no matter what I say, it's not going to make a difference. And I hope and pray that this doesn't come back on us in an awful way. You know, we have lawsuits for days, and you all know this, but you don't want to support the legal department that should even be its own department. We need to take that out of the mayor's office, but that's a whole nother argument. But we are not giving our employees, the people who are doing the work, the tools that they need, because we want to be politicians, because that's what this is boiling down to. You know, we don't want to raise taxes because we can't say to our constituents, what services would you like to cut? We can cut taxes. What services are you willing to give up? But it's too hard to do that. So we pick on the people who do the work. We pick on the departments. We pick on the staff. So that's your approach. Have at it.
What is hard to do is to go through the numbers and to try to find areas to make cuts. That is very hard to do. It is, I don't want to use the word offensive because we are all adults, but you speak of a picture of a city that has gone through many transitions, none of which I was here for, but you were. So it is unfair to lay that at my lap. It's unfair to say that we, for some reason, are shortchanging the process or the city. It is totally appropriate for aldermen to make amendments to the budget. We have not stepped on the toes of the Finance Committee, but only tried to work in partnership with the committee. We haven't duplicated the efforts. We have gone at a different direction and found additional places to make cuts. There are people who worked in the small group who work full-time jobs, who are parents, who have a host of other things, who run businesses, but we still found time to find a way to pour through the numbers and to look to see where we could make cuts. So to act as if we have done it haphazardly, to act as if we have done it out of political motivation, I think is wholly inappropriate. We have done it because the taxpayers whom we represent have said it is inappropriate. It is inappropriate for us to raise taxes and not go through the process of seeing where we can shave cents off, not go through the process of seeing where the city can take a reduction as well. When you listen to your colleague, Alderman Arnett, he paints a great picture at understanding that we cannot continue on the same pace of our spending outpacing our revenue, and that's exactly what we're doing. So we did the lifting of trying to find a way. We didn't leave it all on the Finance Committee's shoulders. We didn't show up and complain, but we showed up with a plan and a solution, and we would hope that you would give that a fair shot. No one wants to hear us go back and forth. That's not why they came here tonight, so I won't belabor it. I'll simply move to the next one if we can and see if we can have some measure of progress, because it's probably tomorrow.
Not quite yet.
So,
Because everyone was not invited to be part of your group for whatever reason.
Quarreling.
I understand that, but you know, we all deal with rotating people through groups, so we understand how you can get around that. And I take offense, and I do take offense, because this was done behind the backs of at least one of the Finance Committee members. So if there was nothing covert about it, then it shouldn't have been done quite that way. But that's how we conduct business, and that's fine, okay? My point and my major issue is these people out here deserve your support. They're the professionals. They're the people who were hired for a reason. And it is our responsibility to give them the tools they need. Whether we think they need them or not, they make that decision for us. And yes, I'm finished.
Alderwoman Tierney?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to go back to the town hall. I think we were all there. And with due respect, my colleague, Alderwoman Finlayson, I do remember you saying that the Finance Committee wasn't able to scrub the budget. I think you used those words, that you weren't able to scrub the budget. And at the last finance work session, City Council work session, you said that you had talked to your constituents and they were fine with the tax increase at that point being 10.5 cents. I can speak for myself, and I assume my peers across the room, that we weren't happy with the 10.5 cents. Our constituents were writing emails, some very strong, and not just from, Ward 1 rich people. I have poor people. I have people in Silipana who are wondering how they're going to afford living here. So we didn't, we just wanted to pursue more. No other intention other than that, just to get it down to less than 9 cents. And that's all I want to say.
Alderman Savage?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to call the question.
Second.
Don't the amendments have to be at least read into the record? Do the amendments at least have to be read into the record? Is he calling the vote on the block?
Call the question, so that's,
We haven't finished reading.
it doesn't matter. Once you call the question, you have to take a vote on that, on the motion.
This was moved and seconded.
Yeah. The whole block was moved and seconded, so it's already entered into the record.
But she doesn't have to,
Yeah, she's still, for public purposes, she still should.
But it's not required.
It's not required, but she still should read the. Even without the explanations, is it not required to actually read the amendments themselves?
No, they were moved as a block and seconded.
They're already in the record.
Okay.
So we have to vote on calling the question.
All right.
I have a
Let me ask the question I've been asking for about 1 out of 3 or 4 of our votes. What is the question? The block being,
The question's, well, first you have to vote on calling the question.
okay. And then,
And then once, if that passes, then you actually vote on the original motion, which in this case is voting on this as a block. A block of amendments 96 through amendments 112. But that's only if the motion to, I'm sorry, if that's only
and
if
that
the call.
includes 108 and 109?
Yes.
So can I motion to approve the call to question?
First, you have to take a vote on the.
Okay.
So to clarify from my understanding, the question is to end the debate or not end the debate? To end the debate. So if you vote yes, it ends the debate. If you vote no, it continues the debate. Okay, thank you.
Motion needs to be seconded. The chair may ask if there's any objection to closing debate. Members object and try to get the floor. Should ask if there's a second to the motion.
They're talking about yellow sheets.
Said majority or just 5
Moved and seconded, you must immediately take a vote on whether to order the previous question. Regardless of the wording of the motion or call seeking to close debate or requires
Never
a
mind.
second.
They changed these.
Two-thirds. What?
Yeah, they changed these.
6. A two-thirds vote taken separately from and before the vote on the motion to which
I don't
it
think
is
so.
applied. To shut off debate against the will of even one member who wishes to speak and is not
Is this
exercising his
amendment?
right to debate. You need you need 6 votes to end debate.
Excuse me, everybody. The city
Call the
attorney,
question, you ask for a second, and then
the city attorney found that if you want to end the debate, you would have to have a 2/3 votes. That means the 6 of you would have to say, it's okay to end debate. If not, the debate continues. So we're going to do a roll call so we can make sure we have an accurate count. Okay?
Good.
Mayor Buckley.
No?
Alderman Finlayson. No. Alderman Rodriguez.
Yes.
Alderwoman Henson.
Yes.
Alderman Savage.
Yes.
Alderman Arnett.
Yes.
Alderwoman Tierney.
Yes.
Alderman Payon.
No.
Alderman Pennell Charles.
No.
The debate continues.
So let's let Teresa please finish the whole.
Let's move on to amendment number
I
100.
think they've been here all night. They deserve to talk. Yeah. Not as much as us.
Mr. Mayor, would you like me to proceed with amendment 100? Amendment number 100 decreases the budget in MIT, $25,000 for Munis consultants and $4,500 for training and education. Amendment number 101 decreases the budget in MIT by $112,000 for capital outlay, putting them on a 7-year replacement cycle. Would you like me to continue?
Questions at the end? Or?
If you, I'm going to keep talking until you stop me. Did you want anyone to address the $25,000 for Munis consultants?
I need to go back to 96.
96.
I would like to have, this is the one that eliminates a portion of the African-American liaison. So I'd like the sponsors of this motion to help me understand why we would increase the Hispanic liaison and decrease the African-American liaison.
We currently have 1 1/2 African-American liaisons. We have a full-time position and a half-time position. We only have 1 full-time Hispanic liaison position, so it would bring them to parity if we had 1 full-time African-American and 1 full-time Hispanic liaison.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, that's going to be your call.
Yeah, so we have, right now, we only have one, we have this position split in the African-American liaison, and then we have a full-time, we've just brought into office a full-time Spanish liaison. Now, there's some sensitivities there. If we cut the full-time position, which I think we need more of, we have to talk a little bit about. We don't have it now, but as it stands.
I'm confused. Is the chief of staff saying you only have a half Hispanic liaison and half African American liaison?
You got to speak
No.
into the record.
Well, half, because it only started halfway through the year,
Yeah, press the button.
On the mayor's staff, we have currently a half and a half. We have a half at the Stanton Center, which has become under our budget. So we have a half and a half. And it was the mayor's goal to go to one each on his budget, on his staff, July 1.
We did ask for, organization chart from the mayor's office as well, and then I did also consult the, which Teresa indicates does have some inconsistencies, the rubric of numbers that we were given for the city employees. That rubric has Mr. Ajayi at a full-time position, and then I believe it's Mr. Griffin at a part-time position, and then it has Ms. Lima at a full-time position. We did seek to confirm those numbers with the city manager to make sure that there was in fact a full-time, half-time, and then full-time as well. That was the information that we were given, that there was a full-time, half-time, and full-time as well. That is also the information that is on the documents provided to us as well.
For July 1.
That there would be on July 1 a full-time,
there isn't-
half-time, and
yes.
full-time?
The mayor's budget has a full-time African-American specialist and a full-time Hispanic specialist. And there is a half-time African-American specialist at the Stanton Center. That's Larry Griffin.
Understood. It's my understanding that, and this is the information that was provided, that Mr. Ajayi is a full-time employee. That was the information.
In FY19,
In
it's
FY19.
proposed. In FY18, right now, he is part-time.
So what we would do is allow him to be full-time. That was voted on in the mayor's, I believe it was the additional funds. So that position would be full-time, and then we would strike the part-time and have them be two full-time positions, a full-time African-American liaison and a full-time Hispanic liaison. And forgive me if I'm using the incorrect terms, if it's liaison or specialist, I believe is what you said, Ms. Smith, the specialist. So it would just be bringing parity to those two positions. It would be both full-time.
And we have a half-time position, a half-time person at Stanton Center that has the same title. So your amendment as it currently is worded would require that either the position at Stanton Center or our position in the mayor's office would have to be cut, one or the other. If it is your intention to have parity, equal, then the amendment probably should be defeated, because we can't, it doesn't get you where you're going. I mean, I'm not sure I understand where you're going, but if you're going to have parity, unless you're purposely eliminating the position at Stanton Center.
That's correct.
That is your intention?
That is the intention. That the full-time position out of the mayor's office that is in FY19 full-time, African-American specialist, that would still be funded at full-time, as is the Hispanic specialist funded at full-time, both out of the mayor's office. The half-time position that is currently operating out of the Stanton Center would not be funded. That is the position that is not funded. It is not meant to strike the mayor's office position down to part-time and keep a part-time in Stanton. It is meant to have the mayor's office position be full-time and to strike the Stanton position.
Thanks for that
Alderwoman
clarity.
Finlayson?
Yes, my next question has to do with the lobbyist position, and Mr. Mayor, I'll direct my question to you. Because we are proposing that we eliminate the lobbyist, the professional lobbyist. And I saw you work the room in Ocean City, so I know your skill set there. However, traditionally we have had a paid lobbyist at various levels who has the experience and connections in the state legislature to help to bring resources to the city. Now this responsibility, if this amendment is to pass, would fall squarely on your shoulders.
Well, I think that we have had an offer from Senator Astle to do it on a voluntary basis. We've also, Bruce Beriano has said that they would do it on a voluntary basis. So,
Okay.
and I think that we all have the connections with the speaker and with the community that we can absorb that. And that was the first place that we went when we talked about the 1% cuts to each department, when we looked at that first. So,
Okay, so that's something we can handle within.
Yep.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Pendell Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to weigh in on this African American liaison position. I hope I have everyone's attention. Thank you. As most of you know, in yesterday's Capitol, the headlines were talking about the camps, the mission, of course, of public safety this summer, and it will go beyond. It will go throughout the school year, is to have every child to be participating in some sort of meaningful activity. I've been meeting with Mr. Ajayi and Mr. Will and Miss Adriana and Miss Janice for weeks, probably close to 2 months. And we've put this package together that will extend beyond the summer. Once I found out that we had these positions, that gave me the impetus to make these, to make sure that these children had these activities. Without them, it would have to fold. It's no way I could do it. I mean, I'm already up till 5 every morning anyway and going to work. But on my regular job. But they are strategic in getting this going, this launch, this one Annapolis. We're going to be working, of course, with the community ambassadors as well. It's all tied together. But I am troubled by some of the things I'm hearing. But these positions are strategic. I served as acting mayor last week for 3 days, and I don't intentionally listen to conversations, but what I heard for 3 days were people working diligently and hard, doing what they needed to do, having meetings with different persons. I can speak to it because I was here for 3 days, every day, all day. And I heard and overheard what they were doing and what they were talking about. And I know we've heard a litany of conversations about people and what they do. I'm just kind of troubled by what I'm hearing. I feel like I'm kind of in the middle, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
May I just
Alderwoman
note?
Henson, yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, that this line item does not cut Mr. Ajayi's position at all, nor Mr. Rao, nor Ms. Hayes Williams. It would simply cut the position that's there at Stanton Center. So it does not make any cuts to any of the wonderful folks that you have been operating the camps with. All of those positions would still be there and still be able to operate the camps beyond the summer season.
I just think I needed to say that, just based on what I'm hearing. Thank you.
Teresa, can you continue, please?
Yep. We touched on Amendment 101 is to cut 112 of capital outlay in MIT. Amendment 102 is to cut another $40,000 for the contractual position in human resources. Amendment number 103 also cuts $10,000 of Munis consultants in human resources. It cuts supplies 500, 350 in ready refresh, 1,000 in advertising, 500 in telephone, and 4,000 in job posting advertisements, and 940 in background investigations.
Question on HR items.
Please come forward. Thank you.
Ms. Hopkins. HR has been down at least 1 or 2 positions for a number of years, correct?
I understand at one point there were 8 positions in the.
I'm sorry?
I understand at one point there were 8.
There were 8,
positions in
and
the
how many are in
department.
HR now?
5.
5. Did the workload change?
Probably not.
So are you doing anything, any less of any of your, I mean, are you still doing the recruiting? Are you still doing the interviewing? Are you still doing the human resource services to our employees? Are you still negotiating between our 4 unions? What's different?
Well, all of those activities are still very much there. We haven't gotten to some initiatives that we haven't gotten through the rules and regulations. Our training has not gotten the focus that it needs to have because we don't have the time to do that. We have trying to manage this classification and compensation study through this. We have successfully completed negotiations, but you know we're working additional hours. We are attempting to do what's on our plate. We've therefore have asked for the return of the full-time position that that will handle employee relations and recruitment, so that we can really do that more timely and have the support needed to address the initiatives that are way behind.
If this position is not funded, what on your plate can you take off? You know, we're not having a discussion about what services. We want to reduce staff, but we're not reducing services. So what services in HR could we eliminate or postpone?
Are you talking about the $40,000 for the contractual? Well, the way I see it is the ability to support another department, which is MIT, another division, because we're both divisions. By providing this support, we get a lot more out of it. We have some initiatives we are absolutely expecting with the talent of the individual that we have an opportunity to consider for the MIT position. We are going to automate some elements of HR that would make the staff time spent hopefully reduced. I know that it won't really reduce our workloads considerably, but that's okay. I mean, I think it's worth that investment. I'm willing to make that investment. I feel that some of the challenges we've had in working with our applicant tracking system to make recruitment better have been so delayed and so agonizingly slow that this will be a great advantage to us as well. I do feel that we can address some of our payroll concerns, our HRIS, human resources information concerns, by supporting that. So I'm willing to take the risk with the reduction of the $40,000 for this position. We are respectfully in great need to fill the full-time position, but I'm going to support the 1% cuts from HR. I think that I put forward reasonable cuts that I will manage around. I feel like and I'm making a plea beyond HR here, that what I'm offering up from your cuts is a great desire that you make sure you also support MIT in their positions, because that's enhancement for HR as well. The technology support that we would get from those positions and the assistance that employees would get from those positions are integral for making sure that how we all work is working smarter with what we got. What we got is maybe not ideal, but it's better than taking a full hit, in the sense of that we can see the possibilities. We already see the possibilities with the Munis consultant that we have used, that she's helping to automate things through reporting and through enhancements, if you will, in the Munis system that will make our HRS needs easier to manage with the staff that we have. And so I appreciate that a lot of the consideration here for the HR cuts are what I offered up at the 1% level.
Well, you are to be commended, and as usual, you're willing to make do in spite of, and I want to say thank you. But I would really start looking at how you can change how we provide services.
Well, I feel that we already have. When I was here before the Finance Committee, Chief Stokes even mentioned that we just simply cannot sit on oral boards for promotions. We don't have the ability to extend ourselves that way. So we've made some changes that I'm not proud of, and I'm not saying they're ideal in terms of the way I would do business and would support others. We are an internal support division. Sorry,
Department.
We still function at that level, and I have the advantage of bringing to the city a great breadth of knowledge. I have a generalist background. I've worked in many specialties and have a great deal of background, so it makes it easier for me to do that. If you had a different person in this role, that might not have been as easy to do. So I have absorbed the responsibilities of the recruitment and employee relations and all of the leadership responsibilities, as well as it's been absorbed by other members of our staff. But I'm just saying that it's probably easier for me to do that than others might be able to do it. But it's been at a cost. We have kind of kicked the can down the road in terms of making some real changes to our rules and regulations, being responsive around interpretation of employment law, integrating that with our rules and regulations, integrating that with state law, every manner in which, I'm sorry, I'm getting tired, so I'm not speaking as clearly as I normally would. But what we do in HR is we have to be aware of what's happening cutting edge wise, what's changing in interpretive guidance on employment law, what's changing in terms of industry standards around. I'll just take, for example, when you have a state law like the Safe and Sick Leave Act, you then have to go back and implement a change from state law that requires you adjusting how you do accumulation of leave for employees, which means then you've got to start working with others to make sure that you are implementing a program through an HRIS, through Munis system, that is not going to blow up what's already working elsewhere. And then you've got to integrate that with what you do with your union employees versus your general employees. Is it going to change your definitions? Is it going to change the way you handle administration of leave in general for all of your employees? So I'm just giving you that one example of what you have to then pool your resources together to change in order to meet the expectations of something that was enacted by the state legislature. We had a retirement this year, so we've had a staff change around that. We were fortunate enough to do that rather quickly, but we're also working to make sure that finance isn't left in the lurch, because we managed to hire their payroll coordinator, their accounting associate. So this is what we do in government. We try to promote people in positions, which then leaves overlap and lag time in being able to fully ramp up with what you ultimately have in replacing your own positions. We work very closely with public safety. We try to be good business partners in our seats, because if you don't, you affect how other departments are going to be able to handle their shortages or their changes in staffing. And as I presented before the Finance Committee before, we've seen a really large uptake in public safety hiring, like a 53% increase from 2016 to 2017, and a 35% increase the year after that. So we've
Ms. Hopkins,
I feel like I'm rambling, I'm very sorry.
well, thank you, and I understand it's late. It's a small amount, but your budget for advertising is proposed to be cut.
We've tried very hard to stay very web-based and say no a lot, and that's the unfortunate part of it, because what we'll do with departments, we'll try to negotiate with them that I'll try to use free sites. I use MML, I use Mako that don't charge us money to post on the web. So I ideally would be, you know, reaching out more with other associations. We do stay web-based, but it's just being a little creative.
Does that hinder our recruitment efforts at all, especially as it relates to public safety?
A little bit. Some of it is, it's just cyclical, you know, sometimes if we can keep our workforce stable, then I can keep our budget stable. If we have spikes in employment and it's difficult to fill positions, then you try to use very specific locations, and like I said, I try to stay web-based because it's way, way cheaper than any other medium.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Alderman Rodriguez?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Ms. Hopkins said a lot of what I was going to say, but I just thank you. Just for the colleagues, the consideration around this, and I'm very grateful that or I know it's not your wish list, but that you're okay with the cuts, because we did take a very active and kind of citywide perspective approach to the need from what you requested for the recruitment and retention specialist. And as you mentioned, because it does support citywide departments, and public safety being one of them, so we felt that was a worthwhile and very critical investment, obviously, and we also appreciate the 1% reduction that you proposed, or that we requested and that you shared. So I just wanted to highlight that this does leave that position filled.
Thank you. But I just really wanted to make sure you understood that I was also very much supporting MIT in those positions, because they give back to us as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Teresa, thank you.
Amendment number 104, the change in this one is it cuts tree maintenance services in the Office of Environmental Policy by $3,000. Amendment number 105 freezes the Accounting Associate 3 position in the Office of Finance, and I'm going to put on the record that we are okay with that. No, this is on the Office of Finance. Okay, and we're okay with that. Amendment 106 cuts purchasing by $1,500, $1,000 for advertising, $500 for supplies, and we're okay with that. Amendment 107 eliminates the new request for an additional planner position. This is an elimination, not a freeze. Amendment number 108.
Before we go on, could we...
Alderwoman Finlayson?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, sure.
Could I ask Director Gutwald to come up and tell us about the impact these cuts will have to the planning and zoning department?
Good morning. Just getting ready to say, good morning. So I'll try and frame this in the context of where the conversation was going. Our department was, and this is when I arrived, had been decimated and cut. They had 16 positions, it was cut down to 9. With the reorganization, I would tell you that, you know, I was able to leverage, and I leveraged positions to do other things and cross-train and get things doing in a more streamlined process. However, over the years, in the 4 years that I've been here, you know, the amount of work that has increased. What was taking 2 to 4 months is now taking 6 months to a year. The number of projects, each and every one of the development review planners has probably doubled. They were doing about 10, now they're doing about 20 projects. And I would add that if we're looking at sharing the burden, a lot of the issues that we're doing because the laws and the regulations that are added by this body cause additional resources to have to be available to get to do the things that you're asking to do. And there's some recent laws that have been passed that increase the process in transparency that the city wants to see. So where there's more public meetings, there's more processes and steps in each and every one of the site plans that are required. And you know, if you don't provide the resource, then we need to find a way to simplify some of the processes so it's not such a great burden, because now each and every one of the projects that we are now reviewing have come a little bit more complicated. And I'm looking at a couple of, you guys to help me with that. So that's the importance of that project, that position. It is definitely an additional resource that is needed because the department has taken on, it's basically doubled its load over the past 4 or 5 years. And we lost positions that originally, as Alderman Savage knows, were 2 positions in another department. That now we've incorporated that into our department, taken on that additional responsibility, but I also thought it was a little bit more, there was redundancy there, which I've tried to take advantage of, so.
Mr. Gutwell, I think we should add to our process whenever we make changes in the city code and other procedures that we truly add a fiscal impact note, which would speak to additional staffing that's needed to do the job.
And timing, yep.
So.
That's a good point.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Pindell-Charles still?
Alderwoman Henson had a
Alderwoman
question.
Henson?
Thank you, Mr. Gutwald. I would note that in the 1% reduction scenario, you did recommend making cuts to the arts and entertainment and downtown partnership, and we did swap out those in favor of the planner position. In discussing it with the mayor, he did indicate that he is using the funds that the city is putting up to kind of leverage some other grant funds and bringing in other sources of revenue. So perhaps in the future, once we have those other sources of revenue, we would be able to fund the planner position. So it looks like, so we want you to know we did consider the cuts that you proposed, and we did not elect to go with those because our mayor has indicated that these could be open the door to other sources of revenue that we may be able to not only fund these initiatives with, but maybe the planner position in the future as well.
Okay.
Pindell-Charles?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I didn't know if our city manager wanted to weigh in on this.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Savage?
You're on your own, pal.
He's far better able to articulate it than I am.
Thank you, Mr. Gotwald. So as you, I guess, alluded to, the department took on additional duties from Forest Conservation Act responsibilities and port wardens.
Maritime Advisory
So
Board.
if those responsibilities were offloaded at some point, given back to environmental policy, would that help to reduce some of the free up some of the time of your planners, existing planners?
I've already spoken to that director, and we will be leveraging that. I'm already leveraging that resource. As I noted before, there's redundancies, so I don't know if we would be able to offload that. And then when you talk about the Cultural Resource Hazard Mitigation Plan, if you're serious about that, that office is going to be inundated with a lot of activities to implementing that plan. So back to, we talk about all these things that we want to get done, and we add complications to I shouldn't say complications, but layers to the process. You're going to need those resources. So.
Yeah, well, yeah, and you're absolutely right with the cultural resource plan. You had a huge list of things that needed to get done with that. Mm-hmm. So I do agree. I think the city will, at some point, I think, need to consider hiring a resiliency officer. There's certainly enough responsibilities that need to get done, but that's something I didn't even bring up this year because I'm trying to hold back. I'm trying to make sacrifices where I can because of this budget. That's why I even went along with some of the reductions in Office of Environmental Policy We all have to do our fair share. So I don't doubt the need, but I'm hoping we can possibly address that down the road by offloading some of those responsibilities further.
Teresa?
Sorry.
Thanks, Pete.
Amendment number 108 reduces the police department, freezes 4 positions. A police lieutenant,
Yes.
the Safe Streets coordinator, a police communications operator, and a police records specialist.
Alderwoman Pindell Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would be a very poor chair of public safety. If I let this slide, I can't speak for my fellow public safety members on this one. But I'd like to have the chief come on up.
Right. And I would add that this is in addition to the $220,000 of attrition that you've already cut.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You're used to these hours.
Yeah. So that is true. It's in addition to the 220. So we're looking at 2.5% cut from the police department. And so, yes, we went through that exercise of what does a 1% look like, what does a 5% look like, but we never really talked about the ramifications of those 1 through 5% cuts. So I'd like to start and tell you what those ramifications are. The first thing that's going to happen, so just so you understand, we're 27 positions down with soft vacancies and actual vacancies. So that puts me at about 98 sworn members, and that includes command staff. The first thing that any agency does, their core function is to answer and respond to calls. So all my discretionary units, I have 1 person in the drug unit, I have 3 people in a flex unit, I have 1 person in a gang unit. Those people, as we go through this attrition, are going to be pushed into patrol. Therefore, I'm losing all these discretionary units. My Safe Streets coordinator that you want to freeze, Safe Streets has been an ongoing program since 2008. We had the systems in place to manage it, and it was managed, but because of attrition that we had to meet, an unrealistic attrition over the last few years, that position was never filled. And that program was able to be divided up among different people. Safe Streets is ending June 30th, and there's a new program being put in place called MCIN, and that goes after gangs in Annapolis. And it's, again, funded through Governor's Office on Crime Control and Prevention. We cannot go and accept this grant, and it could be upwards of $315,000 without someone to coordinate it. I will not accept it. There are much stringent reporting requirements that go along with it. There's management of databases that goes along with it. And I'm not putting somebody in that position that doesn't have the qualifications to do that job. And if, you know, I understand what you're trying to do, and I appreciate that. But public safety should be the first priority of this council. We all have a responsibility to make these citizens feel safe and live in a safe environment. And by cutting public safety, I think that's a mistake. You know, the record specialist. We have new members on the council. You haven't seen what's happened since 2011. At one point, we had 9 record specialists. And now we're going to be down to 5. If you freeze that position, the hope was that we would take that contract or that record specialist position and roll it into a contract. And that contract would not only do the record specialist job, but we would add additional duties to that. And those duties would be help in hiring and CALIA. And when we went through this exercise before, I said, if I don't get the record specialist, I'm going to drop out of CALIA.
And what is CALIA?
CALIA is the Commission on Accreditation of Law Enforcement Agencies. I cannot keep giving administrative duties to police officers to do administrative work. I don't have the people. So, you know, we can manage without it, but it's nice to say that you're accredited and you're following national recognized policies. There are other ways to do it, but I think it's important, and I think it should be important to the council that we're an accredited agency. What else?
Community policing.
So, the lieutenant's position. We are currently acting, I have two sergeants who are acting lieutenants, and I have one vacancy, I think. And I was going to promote somebody to lieutenant about 2 weeks ago before we started going through this exercise, and that was basically put on hold. The only if you freeze a position, so that would leave special operations open that oversees the drug unit, oversees criminal investigations, oversees the flex unit, oversees the gang unit, and I have special operations, and I'm sorry, they don't oversee detectives, and I have a detectives lieutenant position open. So the question is, what's more important? If I don't have that lieutenant's position, where do I pull a lieutenant from to fill that role? Whether it's overseeing detectives that do homicide investigations, or is it special operations that really are responsible for keeping your crime low? That person's Lieutenant Krause. He's the only lieutenant that's really not in an operational role. And so you heard yesterday when we started this meeting about all the good things that are happening in Eastport working together, right? One right after the other talking about Eastport working together. Well, that started out as a police initiative, a community policing initiative. Those things are going to go away. Just because I have 27 vacancies, just because I have to move Lieutenant Krause out if these freezes occur. And so then we have to reevaluate what we're doing with summer camps and what we're doing, with the STAIR program, because we're a part of that, and what we're doing with character counts and what we're doing with DARE. Everything becomes reevaluated just because of one position. It's not the place I want to be, and I'm sure it's not the place that you want to be as well. But that's really the stark realities in all of these, in these budget freezes. If the finance committee decided that I had, $220,000 in attrition, that's about 2.5, 3 cops. And then you add a lieutenant to that. 27 down, add 3 to that, that's 30. Add a lieutenant, that's 31. The last time, when I got here in 2008, there was 103 cops, including command staff. Crime was 4 times the number as it was today. Probably a little higher than that. So it's very easy to see that when the numbers are low, the crime goes up. You kind of saw it in 2016 before we got those additional positions and were able to fill things. We got down to, I want to say it was about 111, and then you have your soft vacancies and all. We had 10 homicides. We're starting to pump those numbers back up. Knock on wood, we're doing really well this year. Really well this year. But I'm afraid that if we make these cuts, we make these freezes, I don't know what the result is. I don't know what the result is. And I think that you, as a council, should think of the worst case scenario, because we lived that worst case scenario in 2016, just 2 years ago. So you have to keep that in mind. PCO.
Henderson? Sir?
Can I address the PCO real quick?
Yes.
So I know it's one position. We have worked our PCOs to death. They work 12-hour shifts. They are forced overtime positions to continue to work in 12-hour shifts, 6-hour shifts, whatever it is. We can't keep working them to death. Can we fill it with police officers? Yes, but that's another police officer off the street. And you just can't fill it with any police officer. Just because we answer the radio or talk on the radio on the street doesn't make us qualified to be a dispatcher. There's a lot more training that goes involved. It's about 6 months long, and we have a lot of people wash out from it when we've gone through the process. So Last year, in 2017, we paid $125,000 in overtime just for communications. You know, one position, maybe 50,000, 60,000 by the time you add up all the shifts, and then you have sick leave and everything else. You're just pretty much back where you started if you fill that position.
Alderman Henson?
Thank you, Chief. I think that you're absolutely right that public safety has to come first. I think that when you look at the way that the city invests, that public safety does come first. When we look at the chart of investments for the city, 24% goes for police, 21% goes for fire. No other individual line item has anywhere near the expenditures that they do, and I don't know that they should. I think that public safety should absolutely come first, and I think that the city budget is reflective of that, that public safety does come first. That being said, because they are such large ticket items, no effective budget reduction would be meaningful if we didn't find some meaningful way to address a reduction in these two departments. We could strap it all on a tiny department like HR or Office of Environmental Policy, but if we don't find something that we can do with our police and fire, then I don't know that we can make any meaningful impact in terms of reductions. When we had the department head here to talk about the vacant positions, we asked how long had the positions been vacant, and we didn't get a clear answer. Some of them had been vacant for so long that there wasn't an accurate accounting on the vacancy. You indicated that the Safe Streets position had never been filled.
No.
When we asked,
No, that's incorrect.
how long has that been vacant?
I think it's been vacant for 2 years, but it was certainly filled. It was filled since 2008 to probably 2016 when she was let go.
Thank you.
But then we had attrition and we couldn't to meet, and then we couldn't fill it.
Thanks for correcting that. When we asked for department cuts or for the 1 to 5 scenario, all you gave us were officer reductions.
That's all I have.
I understand. You didn't say, how about we freeze some of these positions? How about we get fuel efficient cars and cut our fuel costs? How about it didn't give us the opportunity to kind of do anything else creative. It kind of only left us, we certainly were not going to fire anyone, so that's, and our police department. So we didn't go for the 3 officers being let go. We didn't do that. What we did was we looked at the vacant positions, and we started with the civilian and nature positions first to see what was it there that we could kind of trim. We then looked at the lieutenant position because it's our understanding that finding laterals is difficult, so that would be a promotion. So if we could hold off on a promotion. The one position where there was somebody already that had been offered that promotion, there were 2 lieutenant positions. We only included one. And then with the communications positions, we did not include all of them in the recommendations
Correct.
for reductions.
Correct.
So I don't want the narrative to be that there was this wholesale doing away with
And I didn't say that. When I said it was the PCO, I said it was one PCO. I think something else that you have to understand about a lieutenant is the lieutenant is going to save you from lawsuits, right? We have gold badge that we put out every night. Now you're reducing it by 1, so we might have to cut back having a gold badge, a lieutenant or above, out there every night. The lieutenant will save you as a supervisor from lawsuits because they will be present at a lot of these calls for service, and they can intervene when cops decide not to do such smart things. I know, don't do stupid. Right. But, you know, whenever it's always best to have more supervisors on the street than less. And I get your point. I do. And I know that we're a big part of, you know, the city's budget. But, you know, we're the police department. 92% of my budget is personnel and benefits. That's really the only place I can cut. I can't cut fuel. I can't cut contract services. I can't cut out mobile crisis. I understand your point, but there's another side to that coin as well.
So then what would you propose then? Where do you propose a reduction then?
I'd have to really sit down and go through it. I mean, my guess is that we will make up Well, we have 220 in attrition, and what I'm thinking that we're gonna lose this year, we could probably take about 350 in attrition. I think that's a reasonable number.
And
It
I,
just-
and I would add that, they are also the ones, as we looked at the budget, who, looking at contract services, agreed that $70,000 of contract services could be cut. So it wasn't that they didn't put any cuts out there, they put that out there.
Alderman Fione's next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief, the figure that's given, at least that I've received, is a cost of $125,000 for the sworn position of lieutenant. Presumably that includes benefits. Part of that's already being paid to a sergeant prospective lieutenant who would fill the spot, presumably. I know that it's kind of a domino effect. There are probably at least 3 officers that would move up as somebody else moved up. I mean, it seems to me that the $125,000 is way on the high side when I think of the difference between the salary of a sergeant and a lieutenant, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 between a sergeant and a corporal, probably less than that. PFC and a corporal, certainly less than that,
Right.
and way less for a patrolman to a patrolman first class. Now, where you would get a big cost is at the entry level, which is what, 48,000 you start, something like that.
Yeah, 50.
Do you have any rough estimate as to what the cost of that position is?
Which, the lieutenant's
The
position?
lieutenant?
It's about 110.
That's the salary plus benefits, or?
No, that would be just the salary.
Okay.
Salary plus benefits for the lieutenant position is $125,886.
Okay, but because you're promoting from within, you're really only putting out 8 or 9,000.
So you want to know what the cost of a
for the
new police
sergeant
officer?
being promoted, 8 or 9,000 for the corporal going to sergeant, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, my point is, I think it's, the amount is less than 125,000. It's probably more like 75 or 80, but
Right.
70 or 75, something like that.
And Alderman Henson, maybe that's where we can get some of the attrition from, is because we don't have a promotional process in place now for sergeants and lieutenants, and so you're talking, I mean, by the time we even do the notice and everything, we're testing in September, and maybe like we did in 2017, and we didn't promote until 2018. So there's some savings there. I mean,
What effect?
over the last 2 years, my attrition rate was about 500,000. So I think that we could do it we could come close to that number through attrition.
What effect do you think that eliminating this position might have on officer morale?
Well, it's an opportunity to get promoted. If we're doing testing again, they look at it as an opportunity. And I will tell you that we have an agreement with the union that says I have to promote lieutenants' positions. I can only, at the chief's discretion, can only leave one open. And that's a contract ratified by the city council.
Thank you, sir.
Alderman Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chief Baker, for
Absolutely.
everything you do. I would definitely agree that public safety is the core function of government, and just want to put this into context again so that the narrative is reflected in accuracy. Just a couple years ago, I think, or even less than 2 years ago, you were budgeted for 114 positions, correct? Now we're 124, so that's 10 more only in the last year or two. Right?
Correct.
So freezing, again, no layoffs, no police getting, no less police. Freezing one position, one sworn officer position, brings down to 123, from 124 to 123. We have currently 118 sworn officers, right? So suggesting that there's 27 positions that are that need to be filled is not genuine. It's,
I didn't say.
I know.
I said they
I'm
were
just-
soft vacancies.
I know, but that's kind of the narrative that was presented from the beginning of the mayor's remarks. So it's not 27 positions that are done. There's people on military leave, there's maternity leave, I get that. But we have 118 sworn officer positions. Today, we have 124 funded through 18. So this is just freezing one position to bring it down to 123. Chief Baker, yourself
It's more than that, Alderman Rodriguez, because you're freezing one position, but you're also requiring me to meet $220,000 in attrition. So it's more than that one position that's being affected in this budget.
Thank you. And if I'm not mistaken, I mean, you've said, Chief Baker, that it's impossible to fill 124.
It's tough recruiting, and this conversation isn't helping that.
Yeah, no, I understand that, and this isn't about taking down morale at all, because I think we want to do everything we can to support, and for example, my understanding of the successful negotiations is that now every sworn officer will have a take-home vehicle. So I hopefully, and that was done because morale, right? That was the take it or leave it, that was a morale booster, so hopefully that goes a long way.
I hope so.
And so so I just want to like throw that in there a little bit as well.
Alderwoman Tierney?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know that we're looking at these amendments, I guess, for lack of a better word, cumulatively. And just for a point of clarification, in the mayor's amendment, in his pro forma, for police, in the mayor's amendments, we increased the budget for salary and benefits in the police department by $145,181, an increase of $167,795 to reflect revised projections, which was offset by a decrease of $22,600 to reflect some grant allocations. So, you know, that to support, again, the narrative that we're not cutting, we are also working off of a benchmark where we have added. At least that's the way it reads.
Ms. Tierney, you've added because the numbers were wrong for the existing employees and their salaries and benefits for people who are already here for what they make and for what benefits they have selected. I'm very sorry that the budget was put together based on numbers developed in September with errors in the spreadsheet, but it's not like we're just randomly increasing the police department's budget for $167,000 of salaries. That is the existing salaries that the people make and their benefits that are on board already.
So you're saying that that is a mistake that is corrected?
Correct. Every one of those revisions to salaries and benefits based on revised projections is the difference in running payroll in September and making errors in the formulas versus running it in May and not making errors in the formulas. Those are all corrections to what people are making and the benefits they have already chosen and are receiving.
So was that a mistake in the payroll, or?
It was a mistake in the spreadsheet that the former finance director developed and based the budget on.
Okay. The last question is, what are we actually holding for attrition? Is it that number, the 200, that's where it stands right now, the attrition number?
Right now, we have $220,000 budgeted for attrition, and I would agree with Chief Baker that in looking at the projections that it could be as much as 350. I wouldn't go higher than that, but I certainly wouldn't take 350 of attrition and take these vacant positions. I mean, you're going to have some vacancies during the year because it's difficult to fill police officers. There are positions you are going to fill, for example, the PCO or the Safe Streets coordinator, that you're not going to fill them July 1st, but maybe you can fill them by August 1st. So perhaps you take additional attrition, but I think, well, he's articulated what happens if you take 4 positions and the attrition.
Don't we have 250 funded for attrition?
No, you have 220.
We cut 220.
That's how much you have for attrition, 220.
Yeah, that's why. I thought it was a different number too. And could you tell us what's the latest, since I'm not sure what we've done with cars?
So in the agreement that has not been ratified yet by either the city council or the police union, we have negotiated for the officers to receive take-home vehicles. If they live in Anne Arundel County, now if they live outside of Anne Arundel County, they are required to chip in $50 a pay period to reimburse us for the ones that live outside of the county. The ones that live inside the county may only use the vehicles as well as the ones outside the county to commute to and from work. They gave up some other things to help pay for that. They gave up between what they're chipping in and other things they gave up, like the Viva Chop and how we're doing workers' comp and some of the other things we'll have savings on. They're covering about $200,000 of the costs. We found some lease rates that were very affordable, and we may even be able to do better than that. So we can lease the cars we need for, if I remember, about $275 a year. And they agreed to no COLA whatsoever in FY19. I think it was a 1% in FY20. Oh, I'm not supposed to say this? No. Okay, they gave things up, they're getting cars, and it's within the budget.
And it's a 4-year negotiation.
And it's a 4-year contract, with all the unions have 4-year contracts, if they ratify.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Finlayson?
Yes, thank you. Chief, help us to put this in context. How long have you been with us?
10 years.
And how many officers did we have on the force when you arrived?
103.
103.
3.
And
with 131 positions.
131 positions is where we were funded.
Correct.
Okay, but we only had 103.
Correct.
What was crime like back then?
I want to say, I think I said something earlier, I said 4 times. I think it was 2 to 3 times higher than it is today.
Mm-hmm. And what was the outcry from the community?
More police, more outreach, want to know the cop on the street.
Okay. In the previous administration, we began a push for community policing.
Correct.
And one of the things we learned was the fact that we didn't have enough police to do community policing. And then we were funded at, I want to say 110 or somewhere around there, maybe 114.
114.
And then the previous mayor added
10
positions. That got us to the 124.
Correct.
And after those positions, or at least after the initial recognition of the effort to move to community policing, and you created the 2 officers that have responsibilities.
For the wards, correct.
Yes. What has changed?
What has changed? Well, I think we're a lot more responsive. I think we're a lot more community oriented. If you look at 2016 versus 2017 community outreach, we did 10 times the amount of community HOA, neighborhood association meetings, 10 times what we were doing before. We've expanded to a DARE program. We've expanded to character counts. We've expanded our Hispanic programs with Joe Hudson and El Joven Noble. Did I butcher it? Close?
Perfect, Chief.
The community outreach has been tremendous. We continue this year for a push to be in schools. The regular patrol officers, 1, to get to know the kids, and 2, to get to know the layout of the schools, because I think that's important. The push is on. I think I was talking to Lieutenant Krause yesterday when we started this about maybe we should write a paper on what's going on in Eastport working together and publish it in a law enforcement journal, because I think it's absolutely outstanding what's going on. And Alderwoman Henson, you said when we first started this, you talked to colleagues and they've never seen anything like that. And now to see Hood to Good come out of it, and a sewing club, and Bishop Coates take the lead, and we can kind of step back. That was the whole idea, and it's been amazing. And, you know, we want to take that to other places, but I need the police to do it. You know, we concentrate in Eastport, and you've got Lieutenant Krause, and you've got Amy Miguez, and you've got Sergeant Vaden. Okay, if we want to move it to Newtown, who are the three that are going to take over that and run that? And who's going to be the moderator? And who's, you know, if you want to do these things, it takes cops.
Well, that was going to be my next question. So if you wanted to, as the need exists, to come into my ward, can't happen because we don't have the officers. It's in Ward 6, but we can't provide that same service to the community elsewhere.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Alderwoman Henson.
If I may just say that the proposed cuts do only freeze one position, and that is one officer position, sworn officer, and that is a lieutenant position. Currently, there are 4 officer positions that are vacant. There are 5 civilian in nature positions that are vacant. The proposed reductions only freeze one of those officer positions, and that's the lieutenant position, and it only freezes 3 of the civilian positions that are currently vacant. You have 3 police communications operators. We are only proposing to freeze, not eliminate, one of those, the record specialist, and then the Safe Streets coordinator. So any narrative that these proposals are a wholesale cut to public safety is a false narrative. I'm not saying that you perpetuated that, Chief, at all, but I'm just saying that we did go through and we did try to take a very surgical approach to look at what was available in terms of being able to reduce and try to take a very smart look at it, still investing in public safety in the ways that the city has. So I just want to make sure that that is known.
Understood and appreciate it, that it is the suggestion. The additional amendment is 1 lieutenant's position, but when you add the attrition on top of it, it appears to be more.
Thank
you. Chief, how will that 1 lieutenant's position, and more significantly, the other admin positions, the civilian positions, how will that impact your conducting business?
Well,
I've
already stated that the Safe Streets coordinator moving into a gang intelligence model in July 1, and I don't know that I can accept a grant. I don't feel comfortable putting someone in a position that doesn't know how to deal with grants and the stringent guidelines. I mean, we do grants all the time. It's, you know, you have bus safety, that's not a hard grant. But when you're managing gang intelligence and gang enforcement, and you have to work in databases that are federally operated and, you know, through HIDA, and you've got all this additional stringent reporting, I'm uncomfortable putting somebody in that position that won't have the expertise to do it.
Thank you.
Alderman Pendle-Jones.
Thank you. So basically what you're saying, Chief, we're sacrificing 200,000 for 325 potentially.
Correct.
Do the math.
And can I just say, Teresa, could you just clarify why it was so important for you to keep the police and fire on? I mean, of the 18 amendments that are proposed here, I think there was 6 that we were trying to hold on to. So can you tell us why you think that?
I think our number 1 job as a city government is public safety. And when we're going to walk away from a $300 and some thousand grant because we don't have a person to administer it to fight MS-13 gang activity, I don't think that's, in my opinion, I wouldn't recommend that.
I'm sorry, I just have to say something.
Alderman
Because
Rodriguez?
This fear-mongering of MS-13 ridding and taking over Annapolis is terribly disgusting to start your remarks, and then now holding the whole thing hostage around the gang violence of MS-13. If it takes $300,000 with this grant to eradicate the gang violence of MS-13 from our city, Is that what it's gonna take? Like, is that, this whole discussion on public safety keeps mentioning MS-13, 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 when it's just, the narrative is already so negative, and especially right now, that, and Chief, I know you used your words really carefully when you said gangs, and I appreciate that, because you know that that's counter public safety when you're mentioning some stuff like that, when you're trying to tie the gang to the MS-13 to the Hispanic community, like if it's a general thing. So I would ask for people to be very careful about that. That's all.
I apologise.
That's all. I know it's not intentional.
I think just gangs and just youth violence is really what we're talking about here, so it's only,
And I would just say, since you asked me, my goal is to give the police chief the resources he needs to most effectively run his department.
Alderman Savage.
But, I mean, it's an oversimplification, I think, to again, still to focus on the gangs. I mean, we are trying to help the department. We've agreed when we were approached to support the offer to get more, to get take-home vehicles. Because we think it's important to get more police officers hired, right? You're nowhere near having a full capacity of police officers, a full roster. We are supporting Alderwoman Pindell Charles' offer to get these community ambassadors, right? Because our approach is not just about getting more police officers. You did not run on getting more police officers. You ran on building One Annapolis, which is more than just policing on the street. It's about building community policing. It's about building community. That's why these positions in your office are important, right? We're supporting the full-time, Tola's full-time position. We've got the Hispanic liaison. It's a holistic approach. And so I have to agree with my colleague. It is a gross oversimplification to focus on and to blast our hard work on these amendments as just saying we don't care about public safety or we're going to be taken over by gangs. It's just completely irresponsible and just disrespectful to all the work we put into this.
Up to you, Sheila.
Chief, whether it's politically correct, whether it's semantics, have we had a problem in the city with groups of young people creating violence?
Yes.
And does not the governor have a task force that I think it's called the Gang Task Force or something similar to that?
I'm not sure that the governor
We're not
has
making
one. The county has a gang task force that we're a part of, but it does address more than MS-13.
So when we're not making up stuff, I mean, there is an issue, a concern, a problem that needs to be addressed.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, next one, Teresa. Thanks, Chief. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Amendment number 109 freezes one firefighter EMTP position in the Finance Department. It freezes an Office Associate 3 position in the Fire Department. There's a reduction of $58,000 to convert a uniform position to a civilian fire inspector, a reduction of $29,000 for overtime related to conducting background checks, physical agility testing, and oral interviews for new recruits. And then number 110, also in contract services.
I have a question.
Cuts $21,000 for pre-employment physical exams and written test administration. So the part related to the recruiting, the cost to do physical agility tests, physical exams, overtime related to those things is a total of $50,000. But it's in two amendments combined.
I mean, I know this is painful, people, and don't throw rocks and tomatoes at me, but can you come up, Chief? It's gonna be you or me, one or the other.
I will ask people, to, however, to throw the tomatoes and rocks at you.
Yes, ma'am.
It's painful. This is really painful. As a public safety chair, this is really painful. Tell us, Chief, how it's going to affect you.
Well, I'm going to be honest. It's not unusual for us to run vacancies. We've been running vacancies sometimes to offset the attrition rate. So I'm not gonna sit here and tell you we don't run 1 or 2 vacancies throughout the year, save money sometimes. Problem right now, today, is I have a bunch of soft vacancies. These are people that are, I have 2 people deployed in the military, I have 2 firefighters that are pregnant, I have 1 firefighter fighting cancer, has been out for 10 months. So all these soft vacancies, there's 16 positions that I actually filled, but they're not working in the field. So one I don't fill, just throws another car on a train wreck, the overtime train wreck. So we can do it, it'll work. It's just gonna add some money to the overtime account. But it will work, I'm not gonna tell you it won't work, it'll work. But when I overspend my budget next year in overtime, that's all part of that train wreck. So, the thing in this list that I can't give up is this office associate. The reduction of converting the fire inspector, you know, we've talked about that internally, to be honest, because no firefighters want to go into the fire marshal's office on day work. They like to be on shift work. So it's a hassle to do that. So we've talked about that internally, about doing that. The funding for the physicals and the hiring, you know, we've been very fortunate in the past 8 years of doing lateral entries, and we've been able to hire some folks and save the city a ton of money by hiring people that had previously trained, and we saved a lot of funds by doing that, but we have fished that pond dry, and everybody around us has fished that pond dry. So we are forced to go back to the old tried school way of doing recruitment, hiring people, doing written tests, doing background checks, the whole 9 yards, and all that costs money. So we did it this last go around for this fire school class. We have 7 people in, and it cost us a ton of overtime, and that is why my overtime is a train wreck this year. Part of the reason. So my new boss, the city manager, my old boss, city manager, said, just keep spending, don't worry about it. The new boss says, I can't do that. I justify what I'm doing. So we put it in the budget as an enhancement to justify and show what we were doing. And that's why it's in there. But we still have to hire firefighters, and we still have to go through the process, and that's just a fact. The office associate position, yeah, I've talked about it before, it's very important what we do. If you looked at my budget reduction, 1 through 5%, that position wasn't in there. It wasn't in there for a reason. I left before that position left. If you looked at my reductions. Because we need that support staff to make the department keep running. So if I don't have that position, if that position is cut, I'm taking his office associate at emergency management, moving him to fire headquarters. Because I have to have that person to do payroll. I have to do payroll. I have to do certain things to make the department keep functioning. So that's the only thing that lists that I can't live without. I really need that position filled to do all those functions that we talked about earlier. The rest of the stuff, we make it work.
Alderman Tierney?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just going to ask a broad question, and I'm sorry, I meant to ask this with police. What I'm struggling with, and this is where, you know, Teresa has the expertise, but in police, for example, we have a $20,438,000 plus change budget, plus or minus, and we're dealing with what we presented as 1.9, just over 1.5% cuts. So in only dealing with 1.5% cuts, we're talking about not being able to handle functional things like gang violence. So it tells me that something is wrong with this chunk of money of $23+ million, that if we cut 1%, we're not able to do our job. The same with fire. You have a budget of $18 million plus change, and we're talking, with due respect, painfully, of 1.3% cuts, and it's down to positions that you need. Why are we there? Why are we dealing with critical positions. What's in the rest of this chunk of money that we could have looked at? I'm just really perplexed by that.
Well, the problem is, quite honestly, is you have entered a movie, and the movie's half over or 3/4 over. We've been dancing this dance for 4 or 5 years. We've been taking cuts every year for 4 or 5 years. We haven't had any enhancements in 4 or 5 years. They do the contract negotiations every year, and they give the firefighters pay raises or whatever, and they don't fund them. They give the holiday leave, all kind of things they get. They get call duty pay. None of those was funded in the budget. They would tell us, find money in your budget to pay for it, find money in your budget to pay for it. They didn't fund them. So you're coming in now, we've been dancing this dance for 4 or 5 years, and they picked it, all the low-hanging fruit's gone. They picked these budgets clean. You know, I put fuel in fire apparatus. I got to put fuel in fire boats. We've picked all this stuff clean. There's nothing left hanging on this tree. There's no low-hanging fruit left. They've been picked clean. And now you're coming in and you think, oh, this is a new day. No, we've been dancing this dance. We've danced this dance many damn times. I'm getting tired of dancing it. The budgets are lean. They're lean. The only place we have cut is people. I had to buy first aid supplies. I can't run medical calls. I have first aid supplies. I had to buy fire hose. I had to do certain things we had to do. We had to buy equipment to make this thing work. And all that side of the budget is lean as it can get. And Chief O'Malley's back there. He manages it every day. He can tell you there's not no fat nowhere in that budget. The people, the money isn't people. That's what's left in the budget is people. And that's why, you know, I could do furloughs. Be quite honest, furloughs is smoke and mirrors in the fire service, because the only way you do furloughs is tell me put a fire engine out of service on that day. Furloughs don't work in the fire. I have to pay, because if one guy takes off, I pay overtime for another guy working spot. The demand for calls continue to rise. You know, I like to be able to tell the public, hey, only call 911 between the hours of 8 and 5. I can budget my budget that way. It don't work that way. They call all hours of the day. And they keep calling, and they call more and more and more. And some people believe, well, Anne Arundel County can step in. Let me tell you something, folks. My EMS units ran 2,034 calls in the county last year. 2,034 calls. That's 5+ calls a day my units are responding into Anne Arundel County. Anne Arundel County came in the city 500 times last year. The 500 times they came in the city, because my damn units are right there running calls in the county. That's what the problem is. We were talking the other day about staffing, and we were talking about this particular issue. And at that particular moment in time, I had a paramedic unit in Cape St. Clair at the Sandy Point State Park from the Taylor Avenue Fire Station. I had a fire engine, a rescue squad, and a medic unit on an auto accident at Muddy Creek Road and Clydesdale Road, and down by Galesville. And they were the first 2 units. That's my unit running out of Taylor Avenue, first due at Muddy Creek Road. Arundel County can't take care of their own crap. Worry about us. So we are stretched thin. I know I'm on a soapbox here, folks, but I'm telling you, we're stretched thin.
Yeah.
I'm stretched thin, and you know, I did my cuts, and I put in there, you know, to lay the fire chief off. And I know I got some flack about it, but I'm telling you, I'm doing this 46 years. And I've been in every rank in the fire service you can name, and I haven't done nothing I regret. I've done nothing that I'm ashamed of, nothing I'm embarrassed about. And I'll be damned at this point in my life, I'm gonna lay a firefighter off. It ain't gonna happen. We recruit these firefighters to come here. Some of them left their homes and moved here. Some of them have wives, families, children, husbands. And I'll be damned if I'm gonna look them in the face and say, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to lay you off when we're sitting on a $15 million surplus and all the other stuff we have, because we won't cut some money. So that's it. Only thing, so sorry about that. The only thing I say, I can do all these cuts, but I need that office associate. That's what I'm telling you.
Shanika?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your very detailed rationale and your very detailed and thoughtful 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cuts. You clearly took a great amount of time to look and see where you could make any adjustments. I want you to know you have definitely been heard on the Office Associate 3 position. So I do want you to know that you have been heard on that, and thank you for your willingness as a department head to see yourself not only as how can I get the most for my department, but how can I also share the load as an executive in this city and see where I can in my department make some smart adjustments. And we do appreciate you going through that and making some smart adjustments, and I want you to know that you have been heard on the Office Associate 3 position.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Finlay, sir?
Does that mean the 78,232 is restored?
We would have to vote on the amendments as a block, and then we would have to make amendments to the amendments, and there would have to be a will of the body, but I do want to echo that he has been heard on that. I have one vote on the, any amendments to the amendments, but I do want to let him know that he has been heard on that.
Okay, thank you. Chief, tell us about the Office of Emergency Preparedness. I was raving about it earlier in the meeting because I was at the presentation at MML. You know,
Chief, don't leave.
Can you talk a little bit about the impact of the Office of Emergency Preparedness? I think most people don't realize exactly how significant that is in our city and how much it really cost us, or not.
I'm gonna defer that to Chief Simmons, but I will tell you this. We talked on Thursday or Friday, and I gave him chest pains, serious chest pains, over
And trouble breathing.
over this associate position, because I told him point blank that if I couldn't get it, if they cut it, I was taking his associate out of his office.
So that's Ms. Queen you would be taking, huh?
Well, we had a very lively discussion about it.
I'm
And
sure it was.
so, but, you know, emergency management does do a lot for the city of Annapolis. It's a great program. When Chief Simmons and I first came here, it was basically an empty room, a bunch of boxes. And Chief Simmons has grown that into a world-class Office of Emergency Management. You know, another factor, we talk about recruitment and hiring and those type of things that we do. I'm very proud of that fact, and Kevin's been very helpful in this process, and we've done a lot together, but we have a very diverse fire department here. If you factor in the females, we're 33% diverse. I'll put that up against any department in this country. And I'm talking diverse from the top down. We have African-American deputy chief. I have 6 battalion chiefs. 3 of the 6 I have a female and 2 African-American battalion chiefs. Half my staff are. And that goes all the way down through the ranks. And it's not by accident. We've got aggressively recruit to get minorities and females in this department. I think that is our strength of this department, to be quite honest. And the other departments in this country struggle at it. Right across the street, Anne Arundel County Fire Department struggles to do what we have. If you look at their command staff, they're all white faces. And this is a very diverse department, and it comes through aggressive recruiting, and all those things cost money, folks. Simple as that. But I think in the end run, it makes us stronger, it makes us a better department, and we're more reflective of the community we serve. So with that, I did Kevin talk a little bit about emergency management.
I have a little handout. Can I give a handout to the group?
Yeah, please.
Do we have it already?
Pass that to And to cut to the chase and not waste a whole lot of time, we'll just start at page 2, and I just want you to kind of understand what we do grants. We have a reputation, they call us the grant writing ninjas. And if the chief does not get that position and I lose my grant coordinator's position, that's what it would be, my grant coordinator. We would be more like the grant writing goofballs, because we wouldn't have anybody to actually manage these grants. If you turn to page 2 when you get the handout. On page 2, the top, it says direct oversight for grant awards. As you can see, in the current grant year, we're managing $1.1 million of grants. We run out, we're very aggressive, getting grants for jurisdiction our size. We do well. I'm in competition with Howard County, Baltimore County, Hartford County, Baltimore City, etc. And we manage these grants every year. On average, it's never less than $750,000. And the person that would leave would manage that. And if I lost that person, then I lost the ability to manage the grant. So that means I can't go out and be aggressive to get grants. Now, the $3 million that I'm confident that we're going to get from FEMA, that application was 500 pages long. 500 pages long. So if I lost a grant coordinator, then I'd have to get my deputy to kind of do that work, and that's a lot of work every day. It's an everyday thing. So we wouldn't have time to actually go out and apply for $3 million grants or seek grants like we did 106,000 for Weather It Together, et cetera. So that's the sort of things that we do. And just to kind of move along, if you turn to page 3, the grant coordinator is not an office associate. It's almost like an emergency management specialist because they do emergency response. That person responded when we had the Lighthouse Shelter incident. Emergency operations, that person is our homeless coordinator, our UASI,